Hi, this is Dr. David Rowe from Rowe Chiropractic offices, and I'm here with Bernadette and George, two great patients of ours that have been kind enough to sit down and give us, a conversation, just a little talk about what your experience has been since you started at Rowe Chiropractic. So for starters, Bernadette, why don't you tell how you came into the practice? Because between the two of you, you started first.
Yes, I came into the practice. I was introduced to this practice by our son, who had been doing a little bit of research about chiropractic, and he found David Rowe, went to a workshop, and came back and told me that he thought he had had a life-changing experience at the workshop. And I, being the skeptic that I am, said, sure you did. But I was fortunate enough a few days later to actually witness an adjustment, have a conversation with you. And then, of course, I started relaying all my own ailments, aches and pains, and we talked through a little bit of that. Within days, I had come in for an assessment, and I'm going to say the rest is history.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing that your son said, I'm going to find a chiropractor for my parents, because he actually lives in Chicago.
Exactly.
And so he said, I'm going to go check it out, see if I can find the right practitioner. And when he called me, we had a chat on the phone, and I said, why don't you come in and we'll do an evaluation, and then come to our workshop so you have a good understanding of what's going on. And that's how we met him. That was great. Super. So then, and we'll talk about what the symptoms were going on a little bit. So, and I really appreciate you sharing this with everybody, because this is personal stuff. But yeah, George, so how did you get into care with us?
So I was more of a skeptic.
Fantastic. I love this, all the skepticism, right? Okay.
And I was like, well, I don't need a chiropractor. I'm feeling okay. Why should I go?
You're exercising, you're golfing, you've been at it. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But, I came down to the office and you said, oh, look at you, and it's free. It's not to worry.
Yeah, we did that. But why did you come to the office in the first place? Hint, hint, hint.
Well,
you came to Bernadette's report.
Right.
Yeah. And we always look at, health problems as family problems. So we encourage always for the spouse, the family member, a sibling, the fiance, the best friend, somebody. It's great to have somebody else at the report, because we want, 4 eyes and 4 ears are better than 2 and 2. So you came in, and when we went through Bernadette's evaluation, then you saw that and you're like, okay, Bernadette says, I'm going to commit to care, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, George, let's get you checked.
Right.
And what we call the discovery exam, which is the evaluation.
Exactly.
I always think it's really interesting that the average, the American Dental Association says that a child should get a dental checkup by within 6 months of the emergence of the first tooth. Okay, so we say early evaluation. Right now, the earliest chiropractic, in terms of average, the typical chiropractic exam is done on a 32-year-old. So we're a little bit behind in terms of our spinal evaluation, and the three of us are all over 32. That's right. Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah. Okay. So then we did the evaluation, and we went over your films with you. And were you a little surprised at what you saw from?
I was very surprised.
Yeah.
I was very surprised.
Yeah, that would be the same way we might be surprised if our first dental checkup was past age 32. That we might be a little surprised at that. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. So Bernadette, if we could go back to you, describe a little bit about what you were feeling in terms of symptoms, your health challenges, what you were concerned about that made it for you to say, like, you know what, I actually should get checked out.
So my biggest complaint at the time that I started seeing you was a right ankle pain, a persistent right ankle pain. I had actually been wearing a support for the past 10 months. And when I took the support off, I had extreme pain.
And that would kind of lead you to think the problem was in the ankle. Like,
Absolutely.
I've got ankle pain. If I put a support on, it feels a little bit better. interesting, I must have an ankle problem.
Right.
And who commented, what doctors did you see for your ankle problem?
I'd seen many doctors for my ankle problem, because in addition to the severe ankle pain, I also had numbness on my right side. And I'd seen a neurologist about that. I haven't been neglecting these things.
Okay.
I'd been seeking treatment, and all the tests were, negative. My ankle stable. We don't quite know why you have that numb pain after walking for a quarter of a mile, but
And that's not very much
where
walking,
this
yeah.
support, and come back to us basically for us to tell you the same thing, I think, right?
Got it.
I shared those symptoms with you, and again, after the discovery and after my initial adjustment with you, I have not had to wear that support
Wow.
one day since.
Okay.
And I think that's probably I know that I went home and I shared that with George, and I think that was really rather convincing for him to follow me and seek treatment.
So do you remember back when we had the Discover exam, what did we say? How did I correlate between what we did from the exam and the ankle pain? Do you remember the correlation there? So I said, why do you have ankle pain?
Well, you talked to me about all of the nerves that are coming off of the spine, and
nerves.
how they connect to everything, and kind of makes sense that if I was having this persistent pain and there wasn't anything kind of mechanically wrong
In the ankle.
right?
It's got to be coming from somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when we did the Discover exam, what we found is that there was postural misalignments, there was subluxations, the misalignment in the low back that was affecting the nerve, and it's almost like a form of sciatica. It's almost like it's compressing, irritating the nerve that gives the information down into the ankle. So your ankle pain, which when we feel it, we're like, no, I have ankle pain, doc. I have a problem with my ankle. Your ankle pain was actually caused by a neurological interference from the bottom discs. And so when we evaluated it, that we said that's where the pressure is coming from. So we always want to go correct where the pressure is coming from, and then obviously you got some symptom relief with that.
Yes.
Right. So anywhere along the experience, did you ever get any symptoms that in the ankle that came back?
I did. I mean, I had all kinds of symptoms, and I came to you with something that I really appreciate is your openness, your availability, and after the first adjustment, I remember that my initial, my bodily response was a left eye twitch, interestingly enough. And what you said is, lots of things are going to kind of come alive in there, right? As you do your work, you'll feel lots of things. And it's not been a straight road. And one of the things that you said to me initially that has stuck with me is you asked why did I come to see you? I said because I had a pain in my ankle, and you said, well, I can probably fix that relatively quickly. However, there are other things, and it's sort of like the commitment of a patient to look forward to lifelong wellness. That that's what this is about. That's why I come here several times a week, and because it's not just a one quick fix. Right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. If we begin care as an adult, and we haven't had a lifetime lifestyle, we first have to correct the structural postural problems. Then once we correct them as much as we can, then we stabilize them so that the correction has a chance to hold, then we're eligible again for what we all should have done from the beginning, which is to take care of our spine from birth throughout a lifetime. Pardon me, but we were never necessarily told that. Yeah, everybody says, is posture important? People say yes, posture is important. But what does that really mean, and how do I take care of that? So we need, as part of a lifestyle, spinal chiropractic care. because chiropractors are the profession that this is their domain. It's correcting the posture that's affecting the nervous system. And since we all know that the nervous system runs the whole show, we don't have to chase around the symptom. If we fix the problem, the body is self-healing, and that's what's going to correct. And that's what you guys are experiencing.
Exactly.
So George, let's go to you for a moment. So when you first came in, you said some interesting things to me, but I'm not going to, I'll share them with you. But what was your health experience? Like, what did you think you were experiencing great health or okay, or what was?
I thought my health was good. You know, I play a few sports, and I didn't have any problems at all. So I figured, well, maybe I'll take a look and see what's going on.
Got it.
You know, and that was the extent of it.
And do you remember what we found? Like, what was my big concern about when we did the discovery exam, we took the x-rays, do you remember what my biggest concern was?
I believe it was the back misalignment and also my neck misalignment.
Yeah. And did I give you any kind of a indication about, like, hey, this might have been there for a long time?
Yes, you did.
And how did I figure that one out? Do you remember?
That I forgot.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we were looking at arthritic changes,
Right.
bony changes, changes in the disc, almost areas moving towards fusion. Say, like, how in the world could my spine be in a process of fusing, and I'm still golfing and I'm riding a bicycle and I'm fit and I'm participating? Why would it degenerate to such an extent and I didn't know about it?
Right.
And there's a couple explanations, but one of them is only 7% of our nerves are pain sensitive. So these problems, these subluxation patterns, could go on unannounced for a long period of time.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I believe the biggest thing which you pointed out to me was the calcification
That's
of what was going on with
in
my
the new
spine.
day. And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Now, so I'm going to jump to, when we do these discovery exams, we're really trying to discover what is a patient's present state of health. I said to you, this is more calcification than is typically commensurate with your amount of misalignment. I said, I know it's a factor, but I was also concerned about the chemistry of your body. I'm like, there's an inflammatory process going on. So, and that's what prompted us to do the blood work.
Right.
Good. So when we did the blood work, we found, so we do pass the chiropractic evaluation. We did blood work and we found certain key markers in your blood work that were of a concern, which for me wasn't surprising because of the level of inflammation and arthritic change. So what did we do then?
Well, we started the metabolic
Reset.
program.
Yeah, that's right. So here George is not only correcting his spinal posture, he's seeing me multiple times a week, he's doing home traction, he's doing therapeutic exercises, and it's just right before holidays, and I'm like, dude, you're off the sugar. right. And I thought, I was really impressed. You were like, all right, this makes sense. I want to be healthy, so I'm going to make a lifestyle change to reset the metabolism.
Right.
So we did a 3-month program, and any changes from that you could share?
Well, the diet was a big change. Not that I was using sugar heavily,
Yeah.
but I did have sugar in my coffee. And
Bernadette's now mumbling. Now we're on camera and she's mumbling below her breath. Bernadette, go ahead and just and share what you said.
Well, sugar heavily, I think if we really take stock of what we ingest,
Yeah.
I mean, there is sugar in so many things. Forget about just, the sugar that
Well,
was
it
being
wasn't that.
poured into the
Right.
coffee.
But you guys are not junk food
But-
eaters.
No,
you guys are eating
But-
like
Right.
a high quality but plus diet.
Right.
Like
Correct.
the desserts, the high quality
But
plus
Yes.
the
Yes.
the bread,
I
the
had a
dessert.
propensity to have like chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, you share that with me.
Yeah.
But I was proud of you. With that you went in both hands, both feet. And we talked about it. It wasn't like you never slipped to this, but you did this program. And how did you feel? By the way, did you lose any weight?
Actually, I lost about 12 to 13 pounds.
Good. And it wasn't even necessarily the intention,
Right.
but we know that's typically the metabolic reset. It's common that patients will drop weight because they're because as their metabolism is resetting, for starters, they start to they become more efficient at burning calories, but also because we're just getting the carbs out of it in the typical reset, and that's what happened with you. You drop some weight, and that's fantastic. Great. Now, we haven't finished the program, so we haven't done our last re-blood work, the comparison blood work. But in the maybe about 2/3 of the way through, your MD had sent you for your annual blood work, and she did, and yeah, and what do you remember what came from that? Was there any changes?
In my blood pressure, she was surprised, and it was good blood pressure. I forget what the score was, but she was surprised.
That the blood pressure went down, right? Okay, fantastic. And then, do you remember that we actually started to see changes in the sugar and the A1C, which you've had a frank problem with that? Yes. So it was like, okay, that's great. So you got these two things going on, and we're correcting our spinal subluxation, our posture, and we're doing a metabolic reset. We're making a lifestyle change. Wow, fantastic! And your body's actually measurably performing better. That's really what we want. Okay, great. So, Bernadette, you kind of talked a little bit about like what it was like in terms of that. This ankle pain went away. How about in terms of just like how's your body feeling?
So, initially I felt much more energy, just much more alive. Incorporating the home exercise and the traction was also a sense of discipline, that you had to now build these other aspects into a daily routine. Visiting the office, in the beginning, every day initially, five times, right, in the initial phase.
Yes, we go through a boot camp where we were saying, and that's a chance for me to teach you how to do your home care and to jumpstart the nerve system.
Yes.
So we do that first, that daily and we think we did it for 1 week. That was your boot camp, yep. And then we went, what was the schedule after that?
3 times a week.
And you did that for,
I'm going to say, a couple of months, right?
That's right, yeah. So we did three times a week for 10 weeks, yeah. And then we took a comparative X-ray. Do you remember how you did on the comparative X-ray?
There was improvement.
There was improvement.
There was.
You put this effort in. We've got we'll just call this an adult spine with a long-standing pattern. But by doing the corrective care, your spine's actually, every cell in your body knows what normal is.
Right.
It wants to go back there.
Right.
If we can do corrective care, then the body will start to move towards correction. Do you remember what happened with your neck when we started working, and then you had a little flare up on your neck? Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. So we had to make some changes, in the care, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's better. I can tolerate it, because we've done a lot of work. Even though a lot of your problem was in those lower discs affecting the ankle, there was also a substantial problem in the neck, and we've put a lot of our efforts into that.
We have, and I continue to do my home exercise. But as I said before, right, you mentioned that it's not necessarily a straight road, and I think probably life stresses and I carry a heavy bag one day. I'm sitting in the car a few hours longer than I usually do. All of those things, but I think coming here and going through the practice also makes you very mindful of those things.
Fantastic.
And I know, you told George he should, change the wallet, because that affects how you sit, right? When I fix the seat in the car, because all of those things that are very comfortable, that we become very used to, they affect,
Fantastic.
They all impact the reason that we came to see you, right?
Yeah. So now, when after your son was the entry into the practice, and then you guys started, we sent him to a chiropractic referral in Chicago, and he did some really great work with it.
Right.
Now there was a family member who was a little resistant to getting an examination, and she just recently did her discovery exam.
She did.
and I haven't talked to her about this, in terms of how did she report back? Did she say, I was surprised what he found, or did she say, I kind of knew that was going to be going on, or?
she said so many things, but she she was the one that I thought really could benefit from seeing you, even separate and aside from the ankle. Just
So we had another extremity problem, but
Yeah.
but different. That was a situation where there was actually two problems going on: her low back and her ankle. So we've had to
Exactly.
work on the foot itself,
Right.
because just like a spinal segment can subluxate, we can have a change in the arch of the feet. So we've just gotten started. Has she reported any?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just texted her this morning, and she had a busy couple of days with work, and she was reporting that this time she was feeling better
better.
after
And this is
that.
just a couple
Yeah,
of short
yeah,
weeks
yeah.
into it. She was
Right.
pretty hobbled when I first met her.
Yeah.
because the body's starting to heal. We can
Right.
show the body the way home. The body wants to repair. It wants to heal. It wants to express normal health. Fantastic. Did we miss anything? Was there any challenges along the way? Did I get you mad at anything? Did I, or it's been you feel supported from the practice?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that I will say, always available. And again, we had actually, I would say, probably a major bump early on. I don't know if you recall. I came to you one day saying that I was having a problem with my left leg. And again, as you say, right, trying to fix one thing or focus on one thing, then something else happens. But there was a visit, and then that was fixed.
Yeah.
So,
So what that one's about is that there's literally, you have two subluxations in your low back, this primary one and a secondary one right above it. So as we start to fix the primary one, just kind of how you experience it, it starts to exert pressure up, and all of a sudden that one starts to express. We adjusted the subluxation above, it took the pressure off, we're away sailing again. And that's one of the reasons why we check on every visit, and we get some feedback from the patient. What we find is that over time, those types of initial, like, oh, this shifted to that stuff kind of works itself out and that stops.
but I think it's important for patients to know that,
Yeah.
because that can be, people have all kinds of expectations, right? And that could be something that says, oh, what happened? I don't want to do this anymore. Exactly. And I think also knowing that you have an experienced practitioner that you can connect with, who's really listening to you, not just, I feel that when I come and you ask me what's happening, that you are really listening, not just, it's another patient with another story. So I think that that's very, very important, and I have shared that with the myriad of folks and we didn't talk about somebody else who's also somebody that you saw. It was another referral, someone who experienced relief in their neck that they hadn't experienced in 30 plus years.
It's a sister.
My
Yeah.
sister, yeah.
And we do this for many family members that don't live in the New York area. So we always recommend that if you have a family member that's having a specific problem, we come into the office, we'll do the discovery exam, we'll do the workup, and then we'll find the local practitioner that we can refer them to. And Sis has done, I mean, she's had a surgery, prior to this, and she's done remarkably well.
Remarkably well. Very happy with your visit, very happy with the referral and the continued care.
Fantastic.
So.
And we always appreciate. We're saying thank you so much and you, listen, you're a big personality, and you talk to a lot of people, and we really appreciate you sharing what your experience has been with the people in your life, because we're way behind. Just people don't know that we're supposed to be doing this, and as we educate patients and they become active participants, the natural thing is, hey, who else in my life needs it? Well,
Exactly.
everybody needs to get checked,
Right.
but I guess it's like, who's next? Who's the next person in our life that needs to get checked? And we appreciate your constantly, as you say, I was singing your praises, Dr. Rowe.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
It's true. I mean, I always say that I can be, the best patient in anything. If I like the services that I'm receiving, or the care that I'm receiving, I'm gonna, shout it as loudly as I can. So
Fantastic.
it's I'm very happy with my experience at Rowe Chiropractic.
You guys are amazing. Did we miss anything? I think we touched on a lot here, right? We touched on a lot. Fantastic. Good. You guys are great, and we really appreciate you sharing this. So a lot of people will benefit from this.
My
God bless.
pleasure.
Fantastic.